There we go.
All right, looks good. Thanks for starting us off, Margie. Hi, everyone. My name is Abby. I am an assistant account manager here at Keystone Click, and we are a digital marketing and web development agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And today we're chatting all things social media best practices, really focusing on how you can repurpose your content. I'm joined today by Margie. Margie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Margie Hayworth. I'm our Director of Accounts and Operations here. Enjoy social media. We do this for a lot of our clients. It's one of the things that we find we can help people be most successful with. So we wanted to share some of those tips with you, as Abby said, specifically about repurposing content. We all know how much time content takes. Why not make the most of it? So we'll get right to it and go ahead. And the first step in social media is knowing and understanding your audience. Taking a little time to look at who are on your channels, who already follows you. Do they have commonalities, whether it's interests, demographics that they share? Who would you like to follow you? And what are those groups' common interests? What are their pains? What are they on social media looking for? What kind of content do these groups typically engage with most? We have a lot of research, and we've shared in other webinars that talks about the different channels and what people engage with. Take a little time and take a look at that so you know what to share with people on your channels. Is it images? Is it text? Or is it video? And take a little time to research other influencers in your industry. Who's popular among your audience? When you look at your specific industry or your specific area of interest, are there people who stand out that you see those posts going again and again? Those are things you ought to know because you can take a look at their content and learn from them. Right away, we're going to do a quiz. Knowing your audience is really important, but knowing what channel you should be on and what those people expect on those channels is very, very helpful. We're going to start with the young hipster on number 1. What social media platform are you going to find him on? Any guesses? I don't see anyone put in anything in the chat there. But the social media channel that you're going to find this demographic on is YouTube. In fact, you're going to find most demographics on YouTube. Almost everybody uses it for one reason or another. Okay, let's go to number 2. What about this middle-aged, well-dressed fella in the second picture? Where do you think you're going to find him? Which social media channel, if you're trying to reach this guy, do you think he'd be in? Heidi says LinkedIn, another LinkedIn. Absolutely, you are 100% correct. Ding, ding, ding. LinkedIn is where you're going to find this kind of audience to talk to. Okay, in our third picture, we have our boomer. Where do you think the boomers are on social media predominantly in today's world? Any guesses? You see them, we're being shy about that. No one's guessing right now. I'm going to tell you, and Heidi, you are like right on with all of your answers here. Our boomers are on Facebook more than anywhere else. Then we have couple number 4, behind door number 4. Hi, Kira from Puerto Rico. Wow. Okay. Kira, we're talking about choosing your channels and which demographics and which kinds of people are in different channels. Then we have couple number 4 here who are clearly proud of their achievements and have taken some pictures to share. Where are you likely to find them? And Instagram is the right answer for sure. Now, number 5, we've got this young, socially conscious, handsome, okay, he's my son. Where would you find him on social media channels? TikTok is possible. A lot of people are on TikTok, but this is another channel that hasn't gotten as much press likely. Yes, Eric spends time on LinkedIn, but where you're going to find the socially conscious, young, often politically minded people are Twitter. Twitter is where your major influencers are, especially actually in B2B. So that might surprise many of people because people have forgotten a lot about Twitter. Let's talk a little bit about social media scheduling. Now that you know your audience and what channel you want to be on, what do you do with that? Abby, why don't you tell us?
Yeah, of course. So it can be easy when you're thinking about social media to wonder why a schedule would be important. And really, what it is to make your life easier. Absolutely, you can definitely post some spur of the moment posts. Something comes up, you're doing something fun with the company. Absolutely post that. Having a social media schedule, though, allows you to make sure that you're providing consistent content, right? As far as content marketing goes, whether it's social media or blogs, consistency is key. Your users want to know when they can expect to hear from you. Having a schedule also helps you provide value and variety, right? You don't want to be posting the same type of thing every single day, and being able to look at it all in front of you at once is one really good way to avoid that. You can also find resources in advance, right? This is all about planning ahead so that your life is easier later on. Making a social media schedule might be time consuming in the moment. Definitely, I can attest to that. But in the long run, it'll be so much easier, especially if you're using a scheduler. You can make your whole calendar and then put it all on the scheduler, and you're good to go for a month or a week or however long you choose to schedule for. And that kind of goes along with number 4, avoiding that scramble where it's like Thursday and you're like, oh no, I haven't posted all week. What am I going to post today? You don't have to do that, right? Because you already have it planned out. If you use a scheduler, it's already in there. It's good to go. Really little work post scheduling for you. And finally, it'll help you strengthen your overall marketing strategy, right? It'll help you kind of find the happy medium in that marketing mix that we talk about, so that you're not overbearing, you're not selling too much. You get a nice balance of everything, right?
Well, I'm going to jump in here too, because I feel like when we schedule for our clients and even for ourselves, it allows us to be more intentional about what we want to share. It allows us to think especially of our customer journey and making sure we're sharing information at each level of how customers interact with us, whether they're just becoming aware of us, whether they're at the point where they're really considering whether or not to go with us. If we plan our stuff beforehand, it allows us the time to be intentional and thoughtful about it. And that's a real strength to scheduling ahead of time.
Definitely, definitely.
Ready for the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
It didn't go. There we go.
All right. So, like I said earlier, today what we're really focusing on is repurposing your content. And you may be asking, why would I do that? Number 1, make your life easier, right? That's what this is all about. Content takes a really long time to create, and especially if you're making some long form content, using it once is really a waste. And we don't want you to feel overwhelmed and overworked by content creation. So number 1, repurposing your content helps you save time and effort. Number 2, it can also help you be sure that you're adding value on your social media platforms, right? Definitely social media is where you want to connect with users and connect with your audience, but they also want to hear what you think, what your expertise is. Depending on your industry, maybe they want to hear what you like. This way, you can be sure that you're using those long form pieces of content that you know are adding value, and that's why you're putting so much time and effort into them. You can use them on social too to add value across the board.
I'm just going to jump in here on that note. People in any channel are looking for, as Abby says, value. If you're on Facebook, that value may not be learning necessarily, but small learning is really important. That if you're on Facebook, it could be entertainment value. If you're on Twitter, it could be opinion, the value of a well-placed opinion and thought out opinion. But everyone is looking for someone not to waste their time, but to share something that's of value to them. And that can be emotional as well in terms of inspiration, support. So there are many things that people value. And again, this kind of it goes back to understanding your audience and what they're looking for. But making sure you're adding that value by taking those long form pieces and then slicing and dicing them, which we'll get to in a minute, in different ways to highlight the different aspects of what you have to share.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Margie. Finally, we want to maximize the reach of your long form content, right? You write a blog, you post it on your website. If that's all you do, that blog isn't going to get as many hits as it would if you posted it on social media, right? You've spent time and effort on this long piece of content. Let's bring people to it, right? There's no reason, that's what you made it for. There's no reason not to. All right, so now we get into how you can do that, right? You'll see this diagram we have here that's illustrating if you had a podcast interview that you then transcribed, you could easily turn that into a LinkedIn article and a blog, right? So you already have, you have one big piece of content that's like well produced, it's a podcast, and then you can form that into two other pieces of long form content, and then several social media posts, right? If the blog that you pulled from this podcast is, I don't know, 10 best practices for social media, that could be 10 different posts, or it could be a carousel post. And you don't have to keep those posts on one channel. By all means, you, if it's appropriate, use that same content on multiple channels. So this we like to call the slice and dice method, and it's exactly that, right? You take your big pieces of content and you pull the little nuggets out from it without giving away the whole thing, so that hopefully people will navigate back to where you're wanting to lead them.
I do want to comment here that you guys can ask questions at any time using the chat. We will leave questions at the end, but if something that we've said triggers a question, you don't have to leave it to the end. Go ahead and put it in, and we're monitoring the chat. So in case you have something you need to say, go ahead.
You can also feel free to use the Q&A function as well.
Sure. In the slice and dice method, you may think that you don't have as many posts, but as Abby said, if it's the 10 best practices for social media, well, you have 10 posts right there. But also, as I've mentioned in the past, different people in different channels are looking for different things. Maybe your post for LinkedIn is very informative about what those are. And maybe your post on Facebook is entertainment. Hey, avoid these mistakes. And maybe your post on Instagram is more visual and you have a great infographic. So it is the same content, but it's presented in slightly different ways, and you can get a lot of mileage out of it that way. So we'll move on.
Absolutely. We wanted to touch on a few social media trends, right? I think it's important here to say, which is why I included on the title of this slide, how to use them. Not all trends are appropriate for all accounts, right? Especially if we're thinking of trends in the way you would think of like TikTok trends, like those are very fast moving and they're not necessarily appropriate for your business account, right? What we're talking more about here, though, is kind of like trends among users, right? Number one, short form vertical video. So that's if you're taking a video on your phone and it's like this way. That's what that means. Here to stay, right? We're not seeing that go anywhere. And that's definitely due to things like TikTok and Instagram Reels. The reason that vertical video is so popular is because it feels really authentic, right? It feels like I'm just picking up my phone right now and I'm filming Margie doing something silly in the office, right? Whether it is really well produced or not, whether you put that time in is up to you and up to where you're posting it and who's looking at it. But it just helps people feel closer to you and the content that they're consuming. Next, a renewed focus on accountability and authenticity. So I was already kind of talking about this a little bit, and definitely accountability and authenticity has been trending on social for a few years. We're predicting that there will be a little bit more focus on it. As much as you want to be polished and professional on your social media, especially if it's a business account, you don't want to be fake, right? You don't want to be selling all the time. People are finding you on social to connect with you, right? They want to see the people behind the curtain of your business, and they want to see what's going on, right? Especially as people are more interested in value-based businesses. That's what they're looking for, right? They want to see that, like, if they've seen your website, they see your mission, vision, whatever it is. They want to look at your social media and see that that aligns.
I'll just throw in the word trust here. People want to buy from people, brands, companies that they trust. And a surefire way to erode trust is to be fake, to not be authentic. A surefire way to build trust is to allow the connection with who you are. So video for sure helps to allow people to connect to your people more than any other. And pictures, yes, and words, sure, but video where you get to really see the person talking and interacting, that's why it's so powerful. It helps to build trust.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely, Margie. Third, we have using social media for customer service. So I think this has been a long time coming. And of course, we've seen customer service chat functions with growing popularity, right? People are, it seems, becoming increasingly less likely to want to pick up the phone or send an email even. Because social is one of the first places that people are encountering your business, it's likely that they might go there for customer service too. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you're monitoring your social accounts. You want to make sure that you're not, if people are asking you questions in your DMs or in the comments, like, you don't want to leave them out in the cold, right? You want to make sure that you're answering those questions, maintaining that great customer service that you're capable of, and making sure that everywhere that your customers are touching you is accessible for them.
I think most people are aware of Google reviews. And you know, they end up on your Google My Business account. Some companies are a little more attentive to making sure they're paying attention to that. This is a natural extension of that. Not only has someone left you a review on Google, but they can cause your company great fabulousness when they leave a wonderful review on Yelp, which is a social media channel when you think of it, but also on Facebook or on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Somebody has a positive experience and leaves that with you. You want to interact with that. And in keeping, I think we all are aware of when social media goes negative for those big companies where you've heard of the social media nightmares, you want to make sure you're monitoring so that that doesn't happen to you. So social media goes both ways, both the out and the in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The final trend that we wanted to include is a continued use and trend of employees as company influencers, right? And this doesn't have to be your CEO or the owner or the founder of your company. Maybe you just hired an intern, and maybe as the intern is learning your company and your company's culture, maybe they're sharing that on your social media as well, right? Those little bits that they're like, I really love this about this new company that I'm working with, and there's no reason not to share that on our social media channels, right? That's really authentic content because, again, people want to get to know the people behind the business. Increasingly, and this goes along with accountability and authenticity, people want to know who is making the cheese, right? We want to know how the sausage gets made. So we just want to make sure that we're available and accountable to our users on social.
Absolutely.
All
Continued.
right. Yeah. Last but not least, now that we know how we can repurpose our content, how we can really stretch it as far as it can go, get the best mileage out of it, let's get back to the basics and remember those little things that really take a good post to a great post, right? That can be easy to forget. Number one, don't forget that with any content you're making, you're telling a story. And that story doesn't have to be 10 top tips for social media, right? That story is the story of your business and the story of its people. And you want to make sure that you're keeping that story consistent. And you want to make sure that you're telling a story that your audience wants to hear. Second, and I know we've said this a lot, but share your unfiltered, authentic self to support your brand, right? You are your brand more and more. Make sure that you're being truthful about it. Definitely, we've all seen people get canceled and businesses get canceled on social media because they're not being authentic. And that's definitely not a position you want to find yourself in. Third, use images of the right size. This seems like a no-brainer, and it is a no-brainer, especially um, on platforms like LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you're using the right size so it's not taking up too much or too little of the screen, right? People want to be able to see your content. That's why they follow you. So let's not hide it in like something little that we can't see, especially when we're all looking at these little screens, right? If it's not the right size, people might not be able to see it or read it the way that you intended them to. Fourth, also a no-brainer, but often forgotten, make sure you fill out every part of your profile, especially if you're using a business-specific account, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. They give you different things to fill out for a reason, right? They build those profile prompts because they know that it will A, help you get engagement, and B, that's what businesses are looking for. If someone comes to your profile and it's not completely filled out, they might A, think it's unprofessional, B, they're like, is this even a real profile, or is this like somebody made this that has nothing to do with the company? You want to make sure your profile is filled out to continue telling your story and keep that trust and credibility.
Hey, Abby, I think this is a good point, and I don't want to go over time here, but it's a great point to point out some of the little things. When we talk to our individual clients and we're coaching them, there are a lot of little things that can make a difference. For instance, in LinkedIn, did you know that you need to, it'd be best practice to pin certain posts to the top of your page, the most important things, so that people can see what you care about that are there. It's really important to have a really great header image. I mean, could you share a couple of those details? I think those are the things that people don't even realize that are even there for them to do.
Yes, of course. I would say two of the things that I think we come across the most, other than profile images and header images, that we recommend our clients update or add to their profiles, are those about sections, right? And of course, different profiles give you different character numbers, different amounts of space to fill those in. But you want to make sure, number one, don't write a novel, right? Nobody's going to read that. Number two, make sure that it's not too dry, right? And this is especially kind of changing with LinkedIn headlines. And a LinkedIn headline is, there's like your profile picture, and then it says like Abby Radawan, and then there's that little line that says what I do and who I am, right? And then later on, there's like, you can write like paragraphs of a summary. That headline, it's becoming increasingly popular to have something a little bit more creative, right? My title is assistant account manager, but I might want to put something in there like digital creative or something like that, right? Something that tells people a little bit more about me than my title, because your title likely isn't just your job, and that's not all that you're about. So make sure when you're writing those summaries, writing those headlines, that you're making them speak to the brand, speak to your brand, and a little bit more creative, because there's 1,000 account managers, right? There's more than 1,000 account managers. There's millions of account managers in the world. Set yourself apart using your creativity.
So tell your story.
Absolutely. Finally, video is always worth the time and effort. And that's kind of maybe a hard truth, because definitely video is a more time consuming medium for you to produce. But by and large, year after year, video does better on social media. Do you need to be creating videos all the time? No. Should your videos be 7 minutes long to post on your social profile? No, right? Short, 30 seconds to a minute is probably your sweet spot. doesn't have to be every day, maybe once a month, maybe a couple times a month, really helps boost engagement. Studies show that people are much more likely to engage with a video than they are to read your caption, right? So again, we're thinking about repurposing. Definitely you can repurpose blogs and things into videos. Just take 3 important points, put somebody behind a camera, talk about it for 30 seconds. There's your video, right? It doesn't have to be complicated, doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be something a little bit more visual, a little bit more engaging than a caption.
Okay. One thing we want to mention, and I guess I've said the word story a couple of times here, is that we are doing a workshop on strategic storytelling, working your messages so that they are a more strategic view of yourself, your company. That is happening at the end of March, and Abby has shared in the chat a link to the storytelling workshop. It helps a lot to do this kind of work because it gives you the taglines, it gives you the kinds of things that you need to say in your social media profiles, on your website, and a lot of your digital messaging. So join us for that if you have the opportunity. It'll be a really great hands-on, it's a workshop, not so much a webinar where we talk to you. Do you guys have any questions today? We've kind of been broad strokes here. I'm sure there were things that you came here wondering if we were going to cover. Is there something that you would like to ask that we might not have covered? All right, I'm not seeing much here. I don't want you guys to be shy. We have a lot more detail here, but we want to keep these to a half an hour so that you still get to eat your lunch. We know how important that is in the middle of the day.
Of course.
Okay, it looks like we have no questions today. Abby, I'm going to ask you a question because you've been largely our social media specialist this past year. Sometimes I think it surprises us that companies that we work with in B2B don't think that social media is an important thing for them. What do you think is an important social media channel or the most important thing for B2B companies to consider when doing their social media?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to like name a channel. Definitely, I guess if I had to name a channel, it's YouTube because it is a video search engine, right? And that can really help with SEO. And of course, like we've mentioned, what channel you choose definitely depends on your company and it depends on your audience, right? I would say probably the number one thing to keep in mind, and we've like touched on this a little bit, especially as I think more younger people are becoming more buyers in the economy, they're more likely to look at your business on social media than maybe they would be on Google with an older demographic, right? So as younger people get more and more buying power, they're definitely expecting you to be on social, right? They're not, that's an expectation. It's no longer, it's like having a website. It's no longer social is fun, is just fun, or like social is an option for you. You should be on social. Whether or not that's every channel, it definitely, again, depends on your business. And I think looking back at these slides, which we will share with you after this webinar, and we will also share the recording, that slide that Margie had where you got to guess which person was on which channel is a really good way that you can kind of look at and look at them and say, who is my target demographic most like of these 5 options? It's a really good starting point to decide what channels you should be on if you're not on any yet, and maybe what you should add if you're trying to target a new demographic for your business.
I agree. I think it can be, I'm sorry. I think it can be really surprising what channels may make sense for you. For instance, we were talking to a client today about their business and we were proposing, now this is a business to consumer business, and we were suggesting Pinterest because Pinterest is a visual search engine where YouTube is also visual, but it has to do with videos. Posts last longer, they stay higher, they're visual, people are purchasing there. So there may be aspects to different social channels that you haven't considered that with a little bit of research or some help from a social media professional, you find might really benefit your business. So take the time to figure out where your people are, as Abby said, and give it a try. And we always do really suggest, whether it's business to business or business to consumer, you choose one or two channels to really focus on. And then make sure you have quality content because that matters more than anything else.
Definitely.
I don't see any other questions here. So thank you for taking the time with us today. As Abby said, this will all be shared with you via email. We have several webinars every month. We do one. This quarter is all on content creation. So keep an eye out for the next one. And if you are interested in using storytelling to improve your messaging, look for the workshop. Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye, everyone.